They put her on the patio because they thought she was the family failure, quiet, forgettable, unimportant. But while they raised their champagne to mediocrity, she was quietly building an empire. And when her helicopters landed, they realized, too late, the girl they cast aside now owns everything they built and more. The pearls in my mother's ears caught the sunlight as she stepped aside to let me pass. Her voice, poised like always, carried the kind of warmth reserved for press interviews and veiled disappointment. "We've put you on the patio, dear," she said with that particular smile I'd learned to read before I could walk. "The main dining room is for, well, you understand." Of course, I understood. I always understood. I glanced through the French doors into the country club's main dining room, where chandeliers spilled gold light onto a table dressed in white linen and crowded with the people I once called family. Michael raised a champagne glass, and the glint off the crystal looked like a dagger under the midday sun. Rebecca, draped in Versace, laughed just a second too loud, flaunting success like a borrowed fur coat. They were already toasting Dad's 70th. I adjusted the hem of my black dress, simple, tailored, expensive in a way that didn't advertise itself. "It's just," Mom added, fingers brushing imaginary lint from her pearls. "With your modest career choices, we thought you'd be more comfortable out here. Away from all the business talk." Modest career choices. That's what they called building a tech empire while they thought I was just freelancing. "The patio is for failures," Michael called out through the doors, grin wide and condescending. "But hey, at least you can watch real success from out there, sis." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls. All from my executive team. The board meeting we'd been organizing for months had suddenly moved up. The acquisition was greenlit. $8 billion was on the table. But they didn't know that. Of course they didn't. They were too busy celebrating their micro-triumphs and sipping validation from crystal flutes. "Did you hear about Michael's new partnership?" Mom asked, placing the last fork with precision. $20 million in new business. And Rebecca's line is being featured in Vogue. I nodded politely, thinking of the contract waiting for my signature aboard my jet at the private airstrip. The one that would make their success look like pocket change. My father, the stern regal, and still convinced I was wasting my life, stepped into view inside, holding court like a monarch. Michael was mid-sentenced, laying out some inflated real estate scheme. "Now that's how you build a legacy," Dad said, raising his glass. "To real success." Nobody noticed that I didn't raise mine. I stayed silent. As always, "Catherine," my father called through the doors, still using the voice he reserved for employees. "You sure you won't join us?" Michael's about to share his vision for the family business. The family business. The one I bought last month was through a shell company. The one Michael was unknowingly running into the ground, on my dime. "I'm fine here," I replied, glancing at my watch. 15 minutes until everything changed. Rebecca sauntered out, champagne in hand. She looked at me like a project she regretted starting. "Darling," she said, voice oozing false affection, "you need to let me help you with your wardrobe. That simplicity thing, it's just not doing you any favors. Fake it till you make it, you know? Though I suppose, in your case, the making it part seems unlikely." My phone buzzed again. CFO this time. Urgent, terms improved, helicopter, en route. "Rebecca," I said, watching her sip her drink, "I appreciate the fashion tips, but simplicity is often mistaken for insignificance." Her brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, the distant thrum of rotor blades interrupted us. I glanced up. Right on time. The matte black helicopter descended toward the club lawn, sending garden chairs scattering like matchsticks. Its side bore the sleek Phoenix Industries logo. "Who on earth?" Mom's voice trailed off. The helicopter settled, blades slowing. My security team emerged in black suits and mirrored sunglasses, slicing through the garden party like a scalpel. "Miss Chin," James said crisply, stepping up to my table. "The board is assembled. The situation requires your immediate attention." I stood, smoothing my dress. "Of course, James, the acquisition papers." "Here, ma'am. $8 billion. The markets, in Asia, open in 3 hours. Michael's champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the patio tile. $8 billion, he stammered. "Catherine," my father stepped outside, suddenly unsure of his footing. "What exactly is going on?" I held up my phone. A news alert flashed. "Phoenix Industries in final stages of historic acquisition." "Catherine." Chin to close $8 billion deal. Just some business that needs my attention, I said. Rebecca's glass nearly fell from her hand. You're the CEO of Phoenix Industries. Michael's voice cracked. Yes, I said, locking eyes with him, the same Phoenix that's been buying up half the tech sector. And the one that purchased your real estate firm last month. Dead silence. You bought us. Through a shell corporation. The books were a mess. Luckily, I was in a position to save the family legacy. Rebecca stepped forward, voice brittle. Why didn't you tell us? Like when you told the country club I was finding myself. Or when you warned investors, I was a waste of time. Another buzz. Another message. This time from legal. Contracts ready. James gestured subtly. Time to go. I'm afraid I'll have to cut the birthday celebration short, I said. $8 billion waits for no one. Wait, Mom called. Her voice had changed now, thick with urgency. Perhaps we should rearrange the seating. The head of the table is more appropriate for someone of your stature. I paused, turned, and smiled. Now you want me at the head. After seating me on the patio, Michael stepped forward. We should talk, maybe. Combine efforts. You and me, sis. Imagine what we could build. I raised an eyebrow. You mean the company I already own? The one you nearly destroyed while bragging about your genius. The whir of a second helicopter split the air. Is that another one? Rebecca whispered. Just the paperwork? I said. When you're closing billion-dollar deals, you need proper logistics. I turned to leave. My family stood frozen on the patio, eyes wide, mouths silent. The patio, once their way of exiling me. Now the launchpad of their reckoning. The headlines didn't lie. Tech's quiet billionaire, Catherine Chin closes $8 billion. Acquisition. Within 24 hours. My name, long confined to whispered judgments and family shrugs, was plastered across national media. CNN, Bloomberg, Forbes. Even fashion blogs latched onto the footage. 2 helicopters touching down on a manicured lawn. Security teams ushering a woman in a black dress while crystal glasses paused mid-toast. By morning, the world had learned what my family never cared to ask. Catherine Chin was no floundering tech hobbyist. She was the founder and CEO of Phoenix Industries. And she had just executed the most aggressive acquisition in the industry's recent history. But what the headlines didn't capture was the aftermath. My phone vibrated nonstop. Messages poured in from analysts, competitors, journalists, and, of course, my family. Rebecca sent a bouquet of lilies, a Hermes scarf, and a handwritten card. Proud of you, sis. Let's grab brunch soon. It was written in pink ink. Michael left a voice memo. We should sit down. Real estate and tech, there's a natural crossover. The synergy could be explosive. And then Dad, his tone was new, almost. Careful, Catherine, we underestimated you. Let's talk about the family's future. I forwarded them all to my assistant with a one-line instruction. Archive under. Patio memories. Phoenix HQ was alive with momentum. Our Manhattan office buzzed with executives high on success. Department heads scurrying to integrate new assets. And legal teams coordinating with regulators across 3 continents. I stepped out of the executive elevator. Greeted by a standing ovation. Catherine, boss, that was legendary. Asia just opened. Stocks surging. James, my head of security, walked beside me through the corridor lined with glass offices. Media's camped outside. Want me to tighten perimeter protocols? Let them watch, I said. They're late to the story anyway. We stepped into my office, a minimal but commanding space on the 58th floor. I took my seat at the glass desk and opened my laptop. The acquisition was finalized, the ink was dry, and Phoenix was now officially the 2nd largest private tech empire in the world. But I wasn't done. Across my desk sat a new file, freshly prepared. Confidential, Country Club private sale inquiry. Said it was about to be mine. Later that afternoon, I sat in the lounge overlooking the skyline, reviewing options for our next global expansion. That's when James entered again. You have a visitor, says he's an investor. Name's Lucien Vale. I glanced up. The name struck a memory. Lucien was the young CEO of a rival firm, V Corp. Brilliant, ruthless. Recently acquired one of my former targets. Send him in. He entered, confident and casual, in a dark suit with no tie. Sharp cheekbones, sharper eyes, the kind that noticed everything. I wanted to congratulate you in person, he said, extending a hand. $8 billion, that's no small feat. Appreciate it, I said, shaking it. He took a seat without invitation. But I came here for more than congratulations. Go on. I want in. Phoenix is the future, and I'm not here to compete. I'm here to collaborate. What you did yesterday reminded the industry how power looks when it's underestimated. I narrowed my gaze. Or how it's ignored until it lands on your lawn in a helicopter. He smiled. Exactly. He slid a folder toward me. Inside was a joint venture proposals, something ambitious, global, and incredibly profitable. It would put both of us ahead, he said. But more importantly, it would protect us from the ones who won't stay silent next time. Flattering pitch, I said. But you've underestimated one thing. He leaned in. What's that? I don't play defense. He grinned, intrigued. Neither do I. There was a pause. Attention. Electric, strategic, and maybe just maybe something more. That night, I reviewed security footage of the country club. They were still reeling. Michael was pacing the lounge. Calling someone frantically. Rebecca is speaking with a stylist about my dress. Trying to identify the label. She still hadn't realized it was custom couture. And Dad. Alone. By the window. Staring at the lawn where it had all changed. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mom. Dinner tomorrow night. Family only. We want to honor your success. You deserve a proper seat this time. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled up the property deed from my lawyers. The country club's sale was pending. Soon. They'd all be dining at a table owned by me. The next morning, Lucian sent flowers. Not roses, not lilies. White dahlias, rare, elegant. The note read, for the queen who doesn't need a throne, but deserves one anyway. I smirked and added it to my private folder. The press was still chasing me. My Forbes cover was finalized, The Silent Empire of Catherine Chin, and the editorial praised my discretion. Strategy, and calm domination of an industry driven by noise. A text came in from my assistant, Rebecca's downstairs. She brought a bottle of Krug, once 5 minutes and a second chance. I texted back, give her my business card. The real one, CEO and founder, Phoenix Industries. Board chair, owner, Fordington Properties. Later that week, the deal closed. The country club was mine. I changed nothing about the decor, only the seating chart. From now on, there would be no patio and main dining. Just one long table. Whoever added value sat at it. Whoever judged appearances watched from the sidelines. When the board of Fordington hosted their quarterly gala, they asked me to attend. I declined. I was too busy preparing. Phoenix's next acquisition, one that would reshape another industry entirely. My father texted me again. You've built something none of us understood. I want you to know I see it now. And I'm proud. It meant something, but not enough to forget the patio. My reply was simple. You always saw the girl in the chair, not the woman building the empire. He didn't text back. That night, I sat in my glass office overlooking the skyline. The lights blinked below like a million lesser ambitions. James entered once more. One more visitor. Lucian, he stepped in, a small velvet box in hand. This isn't business, he said. It's not a proposal. It's an invitation. I looked up. Dinner, he added. Not at the club. Not on the patio. Just you and me. No agenda. Unless you bring one. I tilted my head, and if I do, he smiled. Then I'll bring dessert. I didn't answer right away. But I didn't say no. Sometimes, even empires need quiet victories. It had been 6 days since the patio. 6 days since I'd dismantled decades of perception in less than 6 minutes. Since helicopters landed like punctuation marks on my silence. Since the people who spoke the loudest suddenly found themselves without anything to say. Now, it was quiet. Not in the world. Phoenix was booming. Reporters were circling, and venture capitalists were desperate for meetings. But in my head, the silence was crisp. Clear, like fresh snow after a storm. I sat in my corner office, sipping matcha from the mug I bought 10 years ago at a flea market, watching the city scramble to catch up. My Forbes cover rested on the coffee table. Beside a stack of acquisition proposals, the world had finally noticed, but the past hadn't quite let go. That morning, my father called. Again, this time, he left a message. Catherine, we're organizing a family trust restructuring. Your position changes things. I'd appreciate your input. There it was, the shift. From how's your little tech thing? To, we need your input. Power didn't just change rooms. It rewrote the language people used, and yet, something in his voice didn't sit right. It wasn't just pride or obligation. It was uneasy. Later that day, James approached with his signature subtle urgency. Lucien Vale just confirmed. He'll be joining you for dinner. Private rooftop suite, per your specifications. I nodded. It wasn't a date, it wasn't business either, Lucien. And I existed in that rare place where ambition and attraction orbit each other. Sometimes in sync, colliding. Tonight, we'd test the gravity. As twilight painted the skyline in molten gold, I arrived at the rooftop penthouse. No press. No board members. Just 2 plates, a bottle of wine, and a view worth more than most people's annual revenue. Lucien was already there. Sleeves rolled, tie nowhere in sight. Hope you're hungry, he said. I brought 3 kinds of dessert, in case you brought an agenda. I smiled. Always. We dined, talked, compared scars. His first bankruptcy was at 23. My first lawsuit was at 24. You ever regret it? He asked, mid-bite. What? Building it this way. Quietly, he nodded. Never, I said. They'd have tried to stop me. Silence was my armor. He poured more wine. Your silence shook the world louder than their noise ever could. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a forwarded email from my assistant. Subject, Urgent Chin Family Emergency Board Meeting. I opened it. From Rebecca at RebeccaChinDesigns.com to Catherine at PhoenixGlobal.io. Subject, Urgent Emergency Meeting. Chin Enterprises. Catherine. Michael and I have called an emergency family board session. There's been a breach. Financial, legal. We need you, please. Please. Rebecca. I stared at it. Lucien caught my expression. Bad news. I showed him the message. He leaned back. Let me guess. You're the fallback now. The empire they ignored is suddenly their only parachute. I stood, or maybe their crash site. He watched me gather my things. You going to save them? I looked out over the city. Depends what they're worth. The next morning, I sat at my desk, long before dawn, watching the sunrise over steel and glass. My inbox had filled overnight lists speculating, lawyers updating, journalists requesting comment, but one name stood out. Michael, subject, urgent. We're in trouble. The body of the message was unusually direct. Catherine, it's worse than we thought. Someone's been embezzling from Chin Enterprises for months. Rebecca and I discovered it during quarterly audits. Millions gone. If we don't act, the whole trust could collapse. You're the only one with enough capital and credibility to help. Please, for the family. Macaulay forwarded the email to James and legal with one note. Dig deep. That afternoon, I arrived at the Chin Enterprises boardroom sleek, cold, and outdated in ways that reminded me of our family dinners. Michael stood at the head of the table, looking pale. Rebecca sat near him, her usual fashion armor replaced by a conservative blazer. Mom and Dad flanked them, both tense. I didn't sit. I don't do emergency meetings without an agenda, I said. Sidewalk. Michael swallowed. We believe the CFO, Kent Loughlin, has been siphoning funds through shell vendors. He's vanished. The audit trail leads back to Singapore, then disappears. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't notice this until now. We trusted him, Dad said. He's been with us since you called me naive for questioning his ethics 6 years ago, I finished. Yes, I remember. Rebecca stood. We didn't know. We made mistakes. But this is bigger than ego. Catherine, if the SEC finds out before we contain it, you'll lose everything. I finished. Silence. I let them sit with it. Then I said, I'll help, but not as your daughter. Not as your sibling. As a partner. And under one condition. They looked at me like passengers clinging to a lifeboat. I want full control of the family trust, I said. Majority voting rights. Veto power. Every asset under one management system. Dad flinched. That's not legacy. That's a takeover. No, I said. It's a rescue. One you need. One I'm offering. Michael stood. You're bluffing. You won't let the family burn. I stepped closer. I sat on the patio. Michael, I know exactly how it feels to watch your own family treat you like a liability. So don't test what I'm willing to watch burn. Rebecca nodded slowly. She's right. We need her. It was the first honest thing she'd said in years. Dad finally nodded, like it physically hurt him. It's yours, he said. Just like that. The legacy passed hands. That night, Lucien called. So Empress of both empires now. Not quite yet, I said, but close. Dinner again. Next week. I have a family business to restructure first. He chuckled. Don't forget dessert. You still owe me an agenda. I smiled. Next time, I'll bring 2. The ink on the contract was still drying when I held my first meeting as the majority controller of Chin Enterprises. No more family votes. No more fragile consensus. What I said now shaped not just the legacy they loved to flaunt, but its future. I stood at the head of the boardroom table. We're going lean, I announced. Streamlined leadership. Transparent accounting. Tech-enabled infrastructure. Michael frowned. We've had that building for 20 years and it's bleeding cash, I said. We're liquidating 3 underperforming assets and consolidating operations in the Phoenix Tower. Rebecca blinked. You're merging Chin Enterprises with Phoenix. I'm absorbing it, I replied. The silence that followed felt like thunder. Mom clutched her pearls again. You're dismantling our identity. No, I said. I'm preserving it. You gave me the wheel. I'm driving us out of the storm. By week's end, Chin Enterprises had a new website, a new executive team, and a new valuation up by $400 million. Investors were circling, drawn by the story of a quiet heiress turned tech queen. But the ghost of Kent Loughlin still loomed. My internal audit team led by James Head tracked $32 million to a shadow account in Zurich, then to a trust in Dubai. Each breadcrumb made it clear. This wasn't just theft, it was betrayal from within. James briefed me late one night as we stared at the security feeds from Chin's old server room. We've got something. A former assistant, Loughlin's girl, paid in untraceable crypto. She's in the city. Checked into the Belmore Hotel 3 nights ago. I nodded. Bring her in. Quietly. The next morning, I met her in a neutral conference room, lights dim, camera off. She was young, early 20s, nervous. He promised me a future, she said, told me you were the enemy. That Phoenix would crush small companies, that the family treated you like dirt. I raised an eyebrow. He wasn't wrong on that last part, she blinked. He said they'd never let you lead. They didn't, I said. I took it. I leaned forward. Now give me everything. And I'll make sure you walk out of here with a future he could never offer. She did. Emails, passwords, recorded conversations. One thread revealed Kent's plan to sink Chin Enterprises stock through staged data leaks, then sell it short through offshore brokers. He hadn't just wanted to steal, he wanted revenge. On my father. On me. He always resented the old man, James said, felt invisible. He underestimated the wrong woman, I replied. The night we froze Kent's accounts, I received a call. Lucien, you busy? Always. You want a distraction? I hesitated. Then I said, yes. We met at a gallery opening in Soho, unassuming, eclectic, and wildly overpriced. He wore dark denim and a navy blazer. I wore a satin jumpsuit that whispered money without screaming it. He offered me a glass of wine. Still playing Empress. Building empires is easier than fixing broken ones, I replied. He nodded. But fixing them makes you dangerous. We wandered past fractured sculptures and ironic portraits. You ever think of burning it all down? He asked. Every day, I said. But you don't, because it's more fun when they have to watch. He smiled. Then he leaned closer. And when do I get to watch you? Without the armor. I met his gaze. Maybe when I stopped needing it. 2 weeks later, Chin Enterprises officially became a subsidiary of Phoenix Industries. Headlines flooded the business world. Tech titan Catherine Chin rescues family legacy. From disowned to dominant, the rise of Chin's silent heiress. And then one more. Kent Loughlin arrested in Jakarta. I sat at my desk, staring at the live feed of his arrest. Cuffed, defeated. It wasn't a triumph. I felt it was closure. The girl on the patio, the one who watched her family toast themselves while pretending she didn't exist, was gone. In her place was someone who didn't just own the table, she designed the building that stood. I walked into the next family gathering, not as a guest, but as the host. Rebecca poured wine. Michael gave a tight, careful smile. My father stood to toast, to Catherine, the future of our legacy. I raised my glass, not just in response, but in ownership, because in the end, the patio wasn't exile, it was launched. The place where I learned how to build an empire in silence. So when the world finally listened, it roared.